Crockett didn't clap back. She took her to court for $100 million. The auditorium was buzzing with anticipation. Journalists, educators, lawmakers, all gathered for the White House's nationally televised education panel in Dallas, Texas. It wasn't some high-drama political summit. It was supposed to be a discussion about federal funding for public schools, but what happened that afternoon would send shockwaves across the country. Seated on stage were 5 women, all from different political backgrounds, including Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, invited for her strong record on equitable education policy. The stage was set with American flags, a polished podium, and smiling attendees. Jasmine had just finished a brief statement about teacher retention in rural districts when Melania Trump took the mic. Melania stood calmly, her face expressionless as usual. She had just praised a literacy initiative. But then, with a quick glance toward Jasmine, her voice sharpened. No warning, no cue. It's interesting to hear from those who have used taxpayer dollars for, let's say, designer shoes and boutique hotels instead of classrooms. The room went dead silent. Jasmine turned her head slightly. She wasn't named directly, but everyone knew who that was aimed at. Melania's eyes didn't waver. She returned to her notes as if she hadn't just launched a missile in front of national media. There was no clarification, no moderator interruption, just a sharp inhale from someone in the front row, a cough, and the awkward scraping of someone adjusting their seat. You could feel it. A line had just been crossed on live television. Jasmine's mouth didn't move, but her eyes said everything. She leaned slightly back in her chair and folded her hands. Controlled. Contained. She wasn't about to give the cameras what they were now waiting for, a reaction they could loop for days. Off camera, Jasmine's staffers were frozen. Her legislative assistant, Brianna Ogles, sitting in the second row, mouthed, "What the hell?" and immediately began scrolling on her phone. It took less than a minute for the clip to hit X and Instagram. 30 seconds after that, someone had already slapped subtitles on it. The panel continued for another 20 minutes, but most people weren't listening anymore. The real story was playing out on phones in their laps. Backstage, as the women exited, a reporter called out, "Congresswoman Crockett, do you have a response to the First Lady's comment?" Jasmine didn't even blink. She walked past with her staff, tight-lipped, her heels clicking against the polished tile like punctuation marks. Inside the car, Brianna leaned forward from the back seat. "Do you want me to draft a post?" Jasmine shook her head. "No, let them talk. We're not doing this online." She stared out the window as the car turned onto Commerce Street. "But she just accused you of stealing money. On camera." "She didn't say my name," Jasmine replied, but she made it real clear who she meant. The car went quiet. Melania's words weren't just petty. They were calculated, and Jasmine knew exactly what game had been played. The First Lady hadn't made a mistake. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. This was a political strike meant to draw blood, and it did. That night, Jasmine's phone buzzed nonstop. Colleagues called, reporters emailed, friends texted her screenshots of trending posts. The words taxpayer dollars and boutique hotels had become hashtags. Conspiracy pages ran wild, claiming Jasmine had once expensed a stay at a $900 a night spa in Arizona. Completely fabricated, of course. Jasmine's mother, who lived in Waco, called twice. On the second call, she was crying. "Why would she say that about you, baby?" Jasmine exhaled. "Because she thinks she can." But Melania had misjudged the moment, and Jasmine wasn't going to let this pass like it was just another political jab. By the next morning, it had spiraled into something uglier than even Jasmine had anticipated. News clips of Melania's comment were everywhere, from CNN to TikTok. The short, 12-second video showing her smirking as she spoke had been reposted over 5 million times in under 24 hours. Some accounts edited it for laughs, overlaying music or dramatic sound effects. Others slowed it down to highlight the icy stare aimed in Jasmine's direction. But what alarmed Jasmine most wasn't the virality. It was the comments. People weren't just speculating anymore. They were accusing. "She's been stealing from us for years. Look up her expense reports. Probably nothing but Gucci and lobster dinners. She should be in prison, not in Congress." Jasmine had faced public criticism before. She was used to trolls, even threats. But this was different. This time, it wasn't bots. It was people with real names, real profile pictures, teachers, small business owners, suburban moms, parroting a lie like it was a proven fact. Inside her Dallas district office, staffers sat around the main table, stunned. Brianna had pulled up their office inbox. The subject lines spoke for themselves. Thief. Resign now. You don't speak for us. How dare you? Most of the emails were laced with profanity. A few included links to random PDFs claiming to be leaked files. Others contained threats serious enough that Brianna forwarded them directly to Capitol Police. This is spiraling, Brianna said, her voice low. This isn't a news cycle. This is a wildfire. Jasmine stood behind her desk, arms folded. Her inbox wasn't any better. She scrolled through dozens of notifications before clicking into one that caught her eye. A forwarded message from a superintendent she'd worked with in Lubbock. Rep Crockett, I know none of this is true. Just want you to know we've got your back. It was the only kind message she'd seen all day. She sat down slowly. How many interviews have come in? 15 national, 10 local, and 2 international, Brianna said. Everyone wants your response. And I bet every headline already has the accusation in it, Jasmine said dryly. Even the ones trying to defend you, another staffer added. Of course, that's how this works, Jasmine muttered. The lie gets printed in bold, the truth's in the 3rd paragraph, if it makes it there. Outside the office, a small group had already gathered on the sidewalk with signs. One woman held up a poster that read, "We know what you did." Another man paced the curb yelling about government fraud. This was no longer just political theater. It was personal. People were showing up to her office. Her staff was scared, and the comments had reached her family. That same morning, her younger cousin, a school counselor in Tulsa, called to say she'd been asked if her family really did all that shady stuff in D.C. I told them you're not that kind of woman, her cousin had said, clearly shaken. I know, Jasmine had replied, but now they've heard it, and that's enough to plant doubt. It wasn't just her reputation at stake. It was her integrity, her name. Later that afternoon, Jasmine's phone rang again, this time from a blocked number. She hesitated, then answered. Congresswoman Crockett? A man's voice said. You don't know me, but I'm calling because you need to know something. I used to work at the White House, communications team. Jasmine froze. What is this about? I saw the panel, he said, and I saw what she did. Just watch your email in the next 48 hours. That's all I'm gonna say. He hung up before she could respond. Jasmine stared at the screen. Her reflection in the glass stared back. You all right? Brianna asked, stepping in. Jasmine nodded slowly. No, but I think we're about to find out just how far this goes. But before anything else, Jasmine had to decide how she was going to fight back and whether she was willing to take this out of the media arena and into the courtroom. It was a closed-door meeting, just 5 people in Jasmine's private office, and all of them looked like they hadn't slept. The mood wasn't angry, it was surgical. No one raised their voice. No one reached for a bottle of water. They were too focused for that. Jasmine sat at the head of the table, tapping a pen against her notepad. On the screen in front of them was a paused clip from the panel, zoomed in on Melania's face as she delivered the line. The smirk, the calculated pause, the refusal to look away. Play it again, Jasmine said quietly. Brianna tapped the spacebar. The audio played for the 50th time. Jasmine didn't blink. When it ended, she looked around the room. If we let that slide, she said, we're giving every person who wants to discredit us permission to say whatever they want, truth or not. Her chief legal advisor, Raymond Knox, adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. We've been looking into defamation statutes for public figures. It's a high bar, but not impossible, especially with what came in last night. He slid a manila folder across the table. Jasmine opened it. Inside were screenshots of internal White House emails. One in particular stood out. Sent 3 days before the panel, it showed a communications staffer warning Melania's team that Jasmine Crockett had an airtight ethics record and that making personal accusations without evidence could backfire. The reply from a senior aide simply read, "She'll handle it. Base'll eat it up." Jasmine looked up. How did we get these? Anonymous sender, secure drop. Same voice from the call you got yesterday, maybe, Raymond said. And they're real? We're verifying headers now, but it lines up. Dates, names, language. It's solid enough to make a move. The room went silent for a beat. Then Jasmine said flatly, "File the complaint." No one argued. Raymond leaned back and exhaled. We'll start drafting. It'll be federal. We'll include defamation, reputational harm, intent. If we bring this to court, we're not doing it to make noise. We're doing it to win. Good, Jasmine said, because I don't want headlines. I want accountability. Across the table, Brianna added, we should prepare for blowback. This'll get messy. The media will spin it. The right will call you divisive. They'll call it a stunt. Let them, Jasmine replied, because this time they're not dragging just me. They're dragging every woman who's worked her way up just to be slapped down in public. There was a long pause. No one knew what to say to that because it was true. At that moment, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from her father. Saw what she said. Proud of you. Don't back down. She held the phone for a moment before setting it face down on the table. So what's next? She asked Raymond. We go quiet. No public statements. No posts. We file clean. We file hard. Let the lawsuit do the talking. How long before it goes public? About 30 minutes after we submit it. Someone's gonna leak it. Probably not us. Maybe them. Maybe the court. Doesn't matter. Let them see it, Jasmine said. Let them know I'm not here to play along. Just then, another staffer entered the room, holding a printout. You need to see this. He handed it to Brianna, who read silently before passing it to Jasmine. It was a trending social post, a screenshot from a fringe blog claiming to have Jasmine's financial records from the past 3 years, alleging hundreds of thousands in suspicious expenses. Brianna spoke first. Fake. Numbers are pulled from 2 different sources. Dates don't even line up. Jasmine stared at the paper. This is coordinated, she said. They're trying to paint a picture before we ever step in court. Raymond nodded. That's why we go first. Control the narrative. File strong, file fast. But the truth alone wouldn't be enough. They'd need precision, proof, and a story the public could follow without getting lost in the noise. 2 days later, Jasmine Crockett walked into the federal courthouse in San Antonio wearing a simple navy suit and a calm, unreadable expression. There were no grand gestures, no entourage. Just her, Raymond Knox, and Brianna trailing a step behind. The cameras were already waiting. Flashes fired from the sidewalk as they approached the glass doors. Reporters shouted questions. Jasmine didn't pause. She didn't flinch. She pushed the door open and disappeared inside. By the time the file stamp hit the complaint, the clock read 9:12 a.m. The lawsuit was 48 pages long, tight, unflinching, and backed with exhibits. The core charge, defamation with reckless disregard for the truth. The amount sought, $100 million in damages, both reputational and punitive. Inside the file were 3 key elements. First, the viral footage from the education panel, authenticated and time-stamped, paired with statements from expert linguists analyzing Melania's phrasing and tone. According to their analysis, the choice of words, those who have used taxpayer dollars for personal indulgences, was intentionally suggestive, designed to imply criminal or unethical behavior without naming the subject outright. Second, the leaked internal emails. They proved that at least one member of the First Lady's staff had cautioned against making unfounded statements about Crockett. That warning was ignored. Worse, the reply showed strategic intent, not concern about the truth, but about political gain. And third, a series of sworn affidavits from Crockett's former campaign treasurer, her House Ethics Counsel, and 2 staffers who had handled her official expenses, each confirming her record was clean, reviewed annually, and never under investigation. Raymond handed the documents to the clerk. There was no announcement, no podium, waiting outside. But by 10:15, the entire thing was on the internet. A local reporter had gotten the tip and leaked the headline. Repartue Jasmine Crockett files 100 balances, lawsuit against First Lady Melania Trump over calculated lie. Within the hour, the story hit national outlets. The screenshot of the first page of the complaint, complete with the bold font Melania Trump on the defendant line, was circulating like wildfire. In the courthouse elevator, Brianna read out loud as tweets poured in. They didn't expect her to come with receipts. Congresswoman Crockett didn't play checkers. She played chess. Melania picked the wrong one. Jasmine stood quietly, watching the floor numbers light up. We're going to get dragged through the mud, she said. Raymond nodded. That's already happening, but now we've got a narrative, and it's based on truth. And truth is enough? She asked. Sometimes it's not, but it's the only place to start. Outside, as they stepped back into daylight, the press had grown. Microphones shot forward. "Congresswoman Crockett, what's your message to the First Lady?" someone asked. Jasmine stopped just for a second. "The same message I'd give to any powerful person who thinks their platform gives them permission to smear someone without consequence," she said. "You don't get to lie about people's character and walk away like nothing happened." Then she walked to the car without saying another word. Inside the vehicle, her phone lit up again, this time not with threats, but with support. A message from an old law school professor. A call from a conservative colleague in the House who said, "I don't always agree with you, but you're right to fight this one." One text stood out more than the others. From a middle school teacher in Abilene, "I show my girls your speeches during Civics Week. They're asking why someone would lie about you on national TV. I told them we don't always get to pick the fight, but we do get to choose how we answer. Thank you for answering." Jasmine read it twice, then she looked out the window and said, "All right, let's see how far they want to take this." But while Jasmine was gaining traction in the court of public opinion, the White House was preparing its own response, and it wouldn't be silenced much longer. For the first 24 hours after the lawsuit hit, the White House said nothing. No press release, no official comment, no tweet from Melania's account. It was almost eerie. Cable news networks filled the silence with speculation. Pundits debated whether Melania had gone off script, whether the leaked emails were authentic, and whether the First Lady would have to testify under oath. Some legal analysts called the lawsuit a long shot. Others said Jasmine Crockett had something rare: evidence, intent, and motive. But by the second day, the tone shifted. It started with a carefully worded statement from Melania's spokesperson, released to 3 major outlets almost simultaneously. The First Lady denies all allegations contained in Congresswoman Crockett's complaint. At no point were her remarks directed at any specific individual, nor were they meant to cause reputational harm. The First Lady has long championed transparency and accountability in public service and will not be distracted by political theatrics. Within minutes, conservative news sites picked it up and framed it as a targeted attack on Melania by the radical left. Headlines screamed, "Crockett weaponizes the courts to silence political rivals," and "First Lady under fire for speaking the truth." And just like that, the spin was in motion. On Capitol Hill, the Republican House Majority Leader gave a press conference claiming the lawsuit was an abuse of the judicial system to score political points. He didn't mention the leaked emails. He didn't mention the original comment. He just hammered the narrative. Jasmine was overreacting. She was playing the victim. She was threatening free speech. Inside Jasmine's office, no one was surprised. "They're running the playbook," Brianna said. "Ignore the facts, call it a stunt, say it's all theater." Raymond pulled up a press release from the office of the First Lady. "She's doing interviews now. Local news in Florida first, then syndicated radio." "What's she saying?" Jasmine asked. "That she was speaking generally about government waste. That people are twisting her words, and that she's too dignified to be baited." Jasmine scoffed. She threw the first punch and now wants to act like her hands are clean. Even more frustrating than the deflection were the headlines cropping up across major platforms, some of them supposedly neutral. Can Crockett prove harm or just feelings? Melania's comment, misstep or manufactured outrage. When women battle women in politics, who wins? It was exhausting. Jasmine had to keep reminding herself that she wasn't doing this for the headlines. She wasn't trying to get camera time. She was defending her name, her record, and the example she'd spent years trying to set. Still, she wasn't blind to the optics. Melania Trump had a carefully managed public image, quiet, glamorous, measured. She didn't yell. She didn't rant. She could say something cutting and then disappear behind a smile. That made her harder to challenge. "You think she'll try to settle?" Jasmine asked Raymond one evening. "No chance. Not with this much press around it. The second she settles, it confirms guilt in the public eye. Her team will drag this out as long as possible." "Good," Jasmine said. "Then I've got time to show people what this really is." That week, a new wrinkle appeared. A conservative think tank published a report analyzing Jasmine's voting record and campaign expenses, claiming patterns of financial irregularities. The report was flimsy, no real evidence, just cherry-picked data and vague wording. But it was enough for certain news outlets to run with it. "They're building a wall of noise," Brianna said. "Throw enough garbage out and people won't know what to believe." "That's fine," Jasmine said. We'll keep showing our receipts. What kept her steady was the response from the people who really mattered. The voters who emailed, the young staffers who looked up to her, the high school student from Shreveport who wrote in saying she wanted to run for office one day, and now I know how hard you have to fight to protect your name. But Jasmine knew this fight wouldn't be won in sound bites. She'd need more than public support. She'd need something irrefutable to push the tide in her favor. By the start of the following week, it wasn't just a lawsuit. It had become a full-blown media event. Every major news outlet had someone covering the Crockett-Trump legal clash. Cable networks ran split screens of Jasmine's press conference next to Melania at charity events. One late-night show host joked, "The First Lady threw shade with more precision than a drone strike." But underneath the spectacle, the country was splitting again. On one side, civil rights groups, ethics watchdogs, and a growing number of independent voters backed Jasmine. They weren't all fans of her politics, but they saw something familiar. A woman who had done her job, climbed the ranks the right way, and was now being slandered by someone who assumed she'd stay silent. On the other side were pundits, influencers, and political personalities who framed Jasmine as dramatic, thin-skinned, or out for a paycheck. Social media fed the fire. Videos of Jasmine in committee hearings were clipped out of context. Memes popped up mocking her facial expressions, the way she spoke, even the way she dressed. One post, widely shared, cropped a photo to make it look like she was shopping during a disaster relief vote. It was fake, but the damage was done before corrections ever reached half the audience. Inside her campaign office, Jasmine's team held daily strategy meetings to monitor the chaos. It wasn't about controlling the news. It was about keeping their footing in it. "We're trending again," Brianna said during one meeting, eyes glued to her screen. "Good or bad?" Jasmine asked. "Both, but the bad is louder today." Raymond looked up from his laptop. "They've pulled in 2 former administration figures to comment. Both are denying the emails ever existed. They're claiming the leak was fabricated." "We expected that," Jasmine said calmly, "but we've already authenticated the metadata. Their denial means nothing once we present." Still, it was exhausting. Every day was another wave, another manufactured narrative, another call from a friend asking, "Are you sure you want to keep pushing this?" And then something unexpected happened. Senator Evelyn Pratt, a moderate Republican from Kansas, someone Jasmine had publicly clashed with on policy more than once, appeared on national television and said something no one anticipated. "This lawsuit might be uncomfortable for some in my party, but the truth is, if any elected official, Democrat or Republican, was publicly and falsely accused on national television, they'd have every right to respond. I may not agree with Congresswoman Crockett on much, but I respect her willingness to defend her integrity the right way, in court." It was a rare moment of bipartisanship, and it mattered. Suddenly, headlines started shifting. "Republican Senator backs Crockett's right to sue" appeared across morning feeds. The clip of Pratt's statement racked up millions of views. By that evening, Jasmine's inbox had flipped. There were still trolls, but now there were also pastors, professors, even retired military officers sending messages of support. In one particularly moving email, a retired judge from Arizona wrote, "In my 30 years on the bench, I saw far too many people accept public lies because they didn't have the energy or the resources to fight them. What you're doing matters, not just for you, but for the record." Jasmine read it 3 times before forwarding it to her dad. Still, the political divide remained sharp. Melania's team leaned into the martyr narrative. She appeared in a sit-down interview with a friendly network, sipping tea in a tailored white suit. "I was speaking about a culture of waste, not about any one person. If someone chooses to feel offended, that is not my responsibility." The clip was clipped, quoted, and dissected within minutes. Back in her Dallas office, Jasmine stood in front of the screen watching the footage silently. "She's good," Brianna muttered. "She's mastered that whole, 'I'm above it all' tone." "Yeah," Jasmine replied, "but one thing I've learned, tone doesn't hold up in court, facts do." But if facts were Jasmine's armor, she'd still need one last piece. Proof that Melania hadn't just spoken carelessly, but knowingly and with intent. It was a Wednesday morning when Raymond's phone buzzed with a notification from a secure drop folder. No message, no subject line, just one file. He opened it, brows furrowing as he clicked through. It was a transcript, unedited, time-stamped, and detailed. At the top, internal prep meeting, First Lady panel, March 1st, 2025, 9:45 a.m. Held in a side conference room at the Eisenhower Executive Office Building. 4 names were listed as attendees, and 2 of them were immediately recognizable: Melania Trump and her senior advisor, Kyla Renner. Raymond read the first 2 pages twice. Then he picked up the phone. "You need to see this, right now." Jasmine was at a neighborhood charter school in San Antonio, speaking to a group of 8th grade girls about civic engagement when the call came. She left quietly through the back and joined Raymond and Brianna at a nearby office. He laid the printout flat on the table. "Who leaked it?" Jasmine asked. "No clue, but it matches the language, tone, and personnel from the previous email chain, and it confirms what we suspected." The transcript showed Melania's team discussing talking points for the education panel. Early on, a comm staffer named Angela Wick raised a concern. "There's a Congresswoman on the panel, Crockett, very popular with progressive groups, strong record on funding, super clean ethics file. If we say anything, even hinting at misuse of funds, it could backfire." Then came Melania's response, verbatim. "People won't fact-check feelings. I'm not naming her. I'm making a point. It'll land." That sentence hung in the air. Brianna leaned over the document, reading it aloud again. "People won't fact-check feelings." That's what this was. Not a mistake, a strategy. "And it destroys the defense that she wasn't referring to Jasmine specifically," Raymond added. "They anticipated this exact scenario and decided the risk was worth it." The leak changed everything. Until now, there had been doubt, reasonable deniability. But this transcript painted a clear picture. Melania Trump had been warned. She made a calculated choice, and she knew exactly what kind of narrative she was creating. "It's not just defamation anymore," Jasmine said. "It's premeditated damage." "And now we've got evidence of intent," Raymond said. "Is it admissible?" Brianna asked. "We'll verify the authenticity through a third-party forensic team. If it holds, we introduce it in pre-trial discovery. It's a bombshell." "This gets out, they'll deny everything," Brianna said. "They'll say it's fabricated." "Let them," Jasmine said quietly. "Let them chase it while we build the case." That evening, the team didn't leak the document. They didn't need to. Someone else did. A digital news outlet, Reckon Report, published the full transcript with contextual annotations. The article exploded within hours. The quote, "People won't fact-check feelings," was printed across every headline. Network anchors repeated it over and over on live TV. "It's the new let them eat cake," one anchor quipped. Suddenly, Melania's defense crumbled. Her denial looked hollow. Her strategy was exposed. In Dallas, Jasmine sat in her kitchen that night with her laptop open, watching the coverage in silence. Her dad called again. This time, his voice was steadier. "I was wrong to tell you to let it slide," he said. "This wasn't about pride. This was about truth." Jasmine blinked back something behind her eyes. "You didn't know what they were planning. None of us did." "Yeah," he replied, "but you knew what it meant. That's leadership, baby girl." Across the country, a shift was happening. The support Jasmine had earned in private began spilling into public spaces. College campuses, community organizations, even a few editorial boards that had remained silent now stepped forward. One particularly striking op-ed in the Sacramento Standard read, "What the First Lady did may not have involved a shout, a name, or a direct insult. But that's the brilliance and the danger of coded smears. When someone uses a national platform to wound reputations by suggestion, not fact, they count on silence." Jasmine Crockett didn't stay silent. But with the court date approaching, Jasmine still had to prepare for the hardest part, stepping into a courtroom and proving not just that she'd been wronged, but that it mattered. She had stayed quiet for nearly 2 weeks. No press statements, no interviews, no tweets. But now, standing behind a simple podium inside a packed Union Hall in San Antonio, Jasmine Crockett was ready to speak. The room wasn't flashy. The backdrop was just an American flag and the Texas state banner. Folding chairs lined up in even rows, no teleprompter, no stage lights, just people. Reporters had been tipped off early that she'd be speaking. Cameras lined the back wall. Microphones were angled toward her like weapons. Her team had asked if she wanted to rehearse. She'd said no. "I'm not reading from anything," Jasmine told Raymond earlier. I know exactly what I want to say. She took a breath, then stepped up to the mic. A lot has been said about me over the past few weeks. Some of it's been flat-out lies. Some of it's been speculation dressed up as journalism. But today, I want to make one thing clear. Not just for me, but for every woman who's ever had to sit in a room and swallow their pride while someone else rewrote their story. The room was quiet. When Melania Trump made that comment, she didn't call me by name. She didn't have to. She looked me dead in the face and said what she said on live television, knowing it would land like a brick. She didn't care whether it was true. She just cared that it would stick. She paused, letting the words hang. But this isn't just about one comment. It's about what happens when powerful people think they can get away with half-truths because the damage is convenient. It's about how we, as women, especially black women in politics, are expected to take it, to stay composed, to smile and keep it moving. Because if we fight back, we're labeled angry. If we speak up, we're called aggressive. And if we go to court, they say we're seeking attention. There was a small murmur of agreement from the crowd. A few women near the front nodded slowly. Let me be clear. I didn't sue the First Lady because I needed a headline. I sued her because I've worked too hard, too honestly, and too openly to let someone smear me with a lie and walk away with clean hands. Jasmine's voice never cracked. It never rose. But there was steel underneath every syllable. If we don't push back when we're lied about, we normalize dishonesty. If we don't defend our names, we teach the next generation that silence is strength. That respect is something you earn quietly, and that's not the truth. That's conditioning. She leaned forward slightly. So I'm here, I'm not backing down, and I'm not apologizing for defending my record. Because the truth doesn't need to be sugarcoated, it just needs to be told. The applause didn't erupt. It grew, steady and intentional. The kind that comes not from spectacle, but from deep agreement. After her speech, Jasmine didn't take questions. She didn't do a media tour. She went home, put her phone on silent, and sat on her porch with her father, watching the sun drop low over the trees. "You sounded like your mother up there," he said quietly. "She wouldn't have taken that nonsense either," Jasmine replied with a small smile. The clip of her speech hit millions of views by the end of the night, and something started to shift again. People stopped asking if she was overreacting. They started asking why more officials didn't fight back when slandered. College students shared her video in classrooms. A women's legal defense group offered public statements of support. Even a former federal judge commented on air that the case could set a modern precedent for public figure accountability. But not everyone was pleased. Melania's legal team called the speech a calculated attempt to influence the public and undermine the judicial process. Conservative commentators accused Jasmine of race baiting and manufacturing victimhood. One even said she was trying to become famous off a lawsuit. Jasmine didn't respond. "They don't get to define my motive," she told Brianna. "They've done enough talking. It's time for the court to speak." But the closer they got to trial, the more unpredictable things became. And Jasmine would soon learn that even with the facts on her side, justice was never guaranteed. The federal courthouse in San Antonio was surrounded by a thicket of reporters the morning trial began. Protesters stood shoulder to shoulder with supporters, holding signs that clashed in color and message. Some read "Accountability Now," others "Hands off Melania." A light drizzle kept everyone under umbrellas, but no one left. Everyone wanted a glimpse. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with quiet tension. Jasmine sat at the plaintiff's table, expression calm but focused. She wore a charcoal blazer, her hair pulled back, a simple necklace around her collar. Across from her sat Melania Trump, stoic, unreadable, flanked by a team of high-powered attorneys. She didn't look at Jasmine, not once. The judge, a no-nonsense appointee, known for keeping tight control of proceedings, called the court to order just after 9 a.m. No cameras were allowed inside, but the moment opening statements began, the pressure became unmistakable. Raymond stood to deliver Jasmine's argument. This case is about truth, about what happens when public figures abuse their platform to damage reputations for political gain. My client was not accused of misconduct. She was suggested to be corrupt on a live national broadcast by someone who had been explicitly warned not to do so. We are here today because words, especially powerful words, have consequences. Melania's lead attorney countered by casting the First Lady as vague and general in her statement. Mrs. Trump made no direct accusation. She referred broadly to concerns about government spending. She did not name Congresswoman Crockett, nor imply any specific criminal activity. The interpretation of her words is not under her control, nor is she responsible for the personal offense taken by a public official. It was a carefully built argument, designed to separate intent from implication. But Jasmine's team wasn't banking on implication alone. On the second day of testimony, Raymond introduced the internal email chain, authenticated by an outside digital forensics firm. One by one, messages were displayed on the screen for the jury, highlighting not just what was said, but when and by whom. Then came the transcript from the March 1st prep meeting. Gasps weren't allowed in court, but the silence that followed the line, "People won't fact-check feelings," said enough. The jurors shifted in their seats. One of them, a middle-aged woman in a teal cardigan, wrote furiously in her notebook. The defense tried to dismiss the transcript as contextually incomplete, but the damage was done. The unexpected twist came during cross-examination of Kyla Renner, Melania's longtime advisor. Under oath, she admitted the panel had been an opportunity to frame public perception around fiscal responsibility. Raymond didn't waste the moment. "You're saying the intent was to create a perception?" "That was part of the communication strategy, yes. Even if that perception damaged a sitting member of Congress's reputation?" "We didn't anticipate the reaction." "But you were warned it could happen?" "Yes, but Ms. Trump believed she could speak freely on public policy." "Even at someone else's expense?" "That wasn't the goal, but it was the result." The courtroom sat in still silence. Melania's defense team pushed back hard on the next witness, Jasmine herself. She took the stand on the fourth day, sitting upright, hands folded on her lap. The cross-examination was pointed, almost confrontational. "Congresswoman Crockett, do you believe every unflattering statement about a public official is grounds for a lawsuit?" "No. But I believe lies that damage someone's reputation should never be treated like harmless opinions. Isn't it true that you've received more national attention since this lawsuit began than in your entire congressional career?" "That might be true, but I didn't file this to be seen. I filed it because I refused to let someone smear me on live TV and walk away from it." "And what do you say to critics who call this a stunt?" "They've clearly never had their name dragged through the mud while their parents, their students, their neighbors watched it happen. This wasn't a stunt. This was survival." Her words hit like a quiet thunder. No theatrics, just facts. The judge called for a recess. Outside, pundits flooded social media with fresh headlines. Crockett holds her ground. Trump advisor confirms targeted messaging. The tone was shifting again. Jasmine returned to her hotel that night with swollen feet and a head full of static. Her phone rang. It was her niece in Austin, voice bright and trembling with pride. "A girl in my class said you're her favorite politician. She said you made her mom cry, in a good way." Jasmine smiled, worn out but certain. "Tell her I said thank you, and tell her to remember, it's okay to fight back when someone tries to define you." But as closing arguments neared, all that remained was the jury. 12 strangers, tasked with deciding whether the First Lady's words were careless or calculated, and whether they deserved consequences. It took the jury 12 hours. They deliberated deep into the night, recessed once for dinner, and resumed again just before sunrise. Reporters stood outside in the muggy San Antonio air, whispering into cameras, guessing at outcomes. But no one really knew what would happen. This wasn't just about politics. It was about whether the justice system would draw a line between rhetoric and defamation when it came from someone with power. Jasmine barely slept. She sat in her hotel room, shoes off, TV muted, phone flipped face down on the table. Her father dozed on the couch. Brianna paced. Raymond sat at the desk, reviewing closing notes that no longer mattered. They'd done everything they could. At 6:42 a.m., the call came. "The jury's back," the clerk said. "We're reading the verdict at 8. Inside the courtroom, the air felt heavier than usual. The judge entered. Jasmine stood. So did Melania. Neither looked at the other. The jury foreperson, a retiree from Amarillo, stood with the verdict slip in his hand. He looked down once, then up at the judge. We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff. The words landed like a soft punch. Gasps broke through the gallery. Some people clapped before the judge banged his gavel to quiet the room. But Jasmine didn't react. She simply exhaled, for the first time in what felt like weeks. The award, $83 million in total damages. It wasn't the full $100 million. It wasn't even the money that mattered. It was the official, public, unshakable statement. Yes, what was said harmed her. Yes, it was reckless. And yes, it was wrong. Melania's legal team requested an immediate stay. The judge denied it. The ruling would stand pending appeal. Outside the courthouse, a wall of microphones waited. Jasmine stepped forward. No notes, just the weight of the moment sitting heavy on her shoulders. This wasn't about revenge. It was about repair. And it was about truth. I didn't ask for this fight, but I wasn't going to walk away from it either. Let this be a reminder that the people we put in positions of power, whether elected or not, don't get to weaponize words without accountability. Not anymore. She paused, taking in the crowd, the cameras, the quiet pride on Brianna's face nearby. We are not powerless against lies. We are not voiceless when attacked. And we are not required to stay silent to seem strong. The clip aired live. It was reposted everywhere. But it wasn't just politicians sharing it. It was teachers, nurses, small business owners, and retired postal workers. The people who understood that words can damage reputations more quickly than any scandal ever could. In the days that followed, commentary poured in. Some praised the verdict as a turning point for accountability. Others insisted it was a dangerous precedent. Melania's lawyers filed a formal appeal. They claimed the jury was influenced by media coverage and that damages were excessive, but the public wasn't interested in legal spin anymore. What they remembered was Jasmine's story, her steadiness, her refusal to flinch in the face of an orchestrated smear. For every headline trying to downplay the outcome, 10 more posts told personal stories of people who'd lost jobs, promotions, or respect over lies someone else had told. Jasmine returned to Congress quieter than before, but more powerful. Her colleagues watched her differently. Some shook her hand without words. Others stopped her in the hallway to say they'd never seen someone take a hit like that and come out sharper. One freshman rep from New Mexico pulled her aside after a vote. I didn't think I could survive this place until I saw how you handled all that. You don't have to handle it all, Jasmine said. Just don't let them lie and walk away clean. Later, in a private moment on the Capitol steps, Jasmine sat alone and reread the message from the middle school teacher in Abilene, the one from months ago. We don't always get to pick the fight, but we do get to choose how we answer. She smiled. That was the truth. And if there's one thing Jasmine Crockett proved from this, it's that silence is not always grace. Sometimes, strength is saying the hard thing out loud, with your head high and your name still intact. If you've followed Jasmine's journey this far, take a moment to think about how you handle truth in your own life. When you're misrepresented, when someone writes a version of your story that isn't yours, stand up, correct the record. Because sometimes the fight for your name is the fight for who gets to tell the truth. Subscribe if this resonated with you and share it with someone who needs to hear it.
Before you leave this video, pause. Not just physically, pause within. Take a breath. Let these words settle into your heart. You came here for a reason. Maybe you're tired, maybe you're searching, maybe you're just trying to feel seen. And let me tell you, you are. You matter. Your growth, your healing, your dreams, they matter. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to be perfect. You just need the courage to keep going. One step. One choice. One day at a time. Most people stop when life gets hard. But you're not most people. You're still here. Still growing. Still rising. And that is strength. You've survived things that tried to break you, and you're still standing. That makes you powerful. Your past does not define you. Your pain is not your identity. Your future is still unwritten, and it's waiting for the version of you who refuses to quit. Progress is quiet. It happens in the small choices. Choosing discipline over distraction, healing over hiding, showing up even when it's hard. That's how transformation happens. And if you're doubting yourself right now, hear this: you are enough. Not one day, today. The world doesn't need a perfect version of you. It needs the real, rising, resilient you. So make the choice to keep moving. Take that one step. Read the book. Have the conversation. Believe again. Because small steps add up, and one day, you'll look back and realize, you've become the person you once dreamed of. Like this video if you're choosing yourself today. Comment your biggest takeaway. Subscribe if you're serious about your growth. Share this with someone who needs it. This journey won't be easy, but it will be worth it. You are not alone. You are capable. You are powerful. Let this moment be your turning point. Until next time. Stay grounded. Stay motivated. Stay unstoppable.